Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Lexie Neeley, the program coordinator at Little Free Library. Welcome back to Unbound. My colleague Shelby, you'll see in the chat, she just shared some tips and tricks for having the best viewing experience today. If you have any tech questions, she'll be there to answer them as quickly as possible. So you can drop any questions or concerns in the chat or send her a private message, and she will work her magic to make sure you can enjoy today's Unbound. We are here for chapter 13, and today we're talking about sourcing books to keep your Little Free Library stocked with great books to share. This can be a huge challenge for some stewards, and for other stewards, it's never a challenge. So bridging the gap to make sure everyone has the best tips and tricks and resources to keep their library stocked with great books for your community. That's what we're going to try to do here today. We are also trying out a new format. So this will be a 30-minute steward panel where we can move through kind of the frequently asked questions and address some questions in the chat as well. So I've prepared kind of the FAQs that we get about sourcing books. And if there's anything we miss or anything that doesn't come up, time permitting, please leave those questions in the chat and we will try to get to them. And we'll kick around some ideas with myself, part of my role at Little Free Library is working in steward services and trying to connect stewards with resources that make it easier to be a steward. And two fabulous stewards we will be joined by today. So we'll have a couple different perspectives to share as well. And I would like to start by introducing our guests, and then we can jump right into the questions. First, I would like to welcome Libby MacDonald. Libby is a longtime Little Free Library steward in Ontario. She frequently shares her wisdom in our steward group on Facebook, so we're excited to hear from her on Unbound to get her tips and tricks today. Welcome, Libby. Thanks for joining us. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, and I'm very flattered by that introduction.
We're thrilled to have you.
As if I have wisdom, my word.
It'll be great. Next, I would like to give a warm welcome to Leslie Gang. Leslie is a Little Free Library steward and the co-founder of an organization called Hindy's Libraries. Some of you may be familiar with them, but for those who aren't, Leslie, welcome and hello. Would you like to share the story of Hindy's Libraries with us just to get started?
Sure. Hi, everyone. Thank you for having me on, Lexie. I'm very grateful. We are both a nonprofit and a resource for many of you here, as well as a Little Free Library steward ourselves. In a very quick nutshell, the photo that you see on the screen will give a great example. What you see there, we formed in memory of a high school teacher and mother of 5 kids, some of whom you see in the photo, who passed away very young at the age of 32. And in her memory, her family and the administration and I, and she was a colleague of mine, we built 3 Little Free Libraries in her memory. And after building the first one, we asked the students of the school in that division, including Hindy, which is her name, including Hindy's eldest children, to bring one book to fill the library for the opening ceremony, which I feel like may be a familiar ask. And after we had the ceremony and filled the box, I basically got a phone call that said something along the lines of, "So I think you're great, and I'm so glad you did this, but why are there 500 books in my office right now?" And I said, "Oh my God, I have no idea." I picked them up, and we distributed them to local nonprofits in the community, homeless shelters, pantries, food distribution program. And we said, okay, that was nice. But while we're getting rid of those books, the game of broken telephone kind of turned into Leslie and David, who is Hindy's husband in that purple shirt over there, and now my co-founder. Leslie and David are collecting children's books. So fast forward almost 4 years, we not only have these Little Free Libraries in Hindy's memory at her children's school, we also collect gently used and new children's books and distribute them all over the world. We ship them to organizations and Little Free Library stewards who service families and children in need, whether you're located in a book desert or you're next to, let's say, a homeless shelter or a low-income population. We try to provide you with children's books, and we don't charge you anything. There's no catch except send us some pictures so we can show our supporters what we do. And so we're kind of on both ends of the Little Free Library network.
Thank you so much. Many of you who are watching have probably benefited from Hindy's libraries and the books they're able to provide. So it's great to have Leslie here to introduce anyone who's unfamiliar and put a face to the name for sure. So let's get into some of these questions. Like I said, I have collected a list of some of our frequently asked questions regarding books to get us started. And if there's a question missing here, please feel free to ask it in the chat and we'll try to answer it today. So number one question we get all the time is, where do you get free books? Either of you can jump in. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, the main source, like 95% of what my library gets is free. And it's essentially it comes from the community. And I would like to say it's organically, like, the idea of the take a book, leave a book. The thing is, in my experience, it rarely happens that way. It's rare for people to have books just with them that they then drop off. So for my library, the way that I found is extremely helpful is I decorate the library every chance I get for holidays, for maybe the change in the weather and cold weather or fall, or almost any excuse I can think of. There's any themed celebration, any holiday, and then circulate that on social media throughout Facebook, on the neighborhood groups, on an app called Nextdoor, on Instagram, Twitter, if that's your kind of thing, and essentially raising that awareness. It's also on quite a busy corner, so when people drive past, they see the streamers or the balloons or whatever. And one way or another, that kind of raised awareness has always resulted in an uptick in contributions to the point where we're self-sufficient now. And it's actually a little bit better than that. We've got a little slush pile, which is nice, but it was never like that when the library had a low profile. So just in my experience, the way to get free books is in essence a sort of constant rolling profile raising, and then there are some instances where maybe I'm asking for a specific kind of book, and that would be a specific call out. That certainly happens too. But anyway, just essentially like a raised profile has really helped.
Yeah, for sure. Leslie, what do you have to add?
So I totally agree with Libby that using social media like the local moms groups in your community is a wonderful way to go, and even going a step further. Now, I know I like to collect books in bulk, which many of you here may not be able to store, but I highly recommend you making a specific graphic looking for service groups, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, Rotary clubs, key clubs. I am telling you guys that I just put up a post on Facebook in my local moms groups, and I have about 20 troops in Long Island running drives for me. They follow my guidelines, so you guys can come up with your own guidelines if you have any. Like Libby said, certain books, certain age brackets, and utilize them, because these girls and these boys and these Rotary groups, they're looking for projects. In fact, Rotary International, one of their pillars is promoting literacy. So they are looking for groups to partner with. So if you could pitch your cause and show them where your books are going, describe your community, your demographic, it's very easy. You just need to prepare for an abundance of books, prepare a little room or garage to have them, and fill it as you need it. I will tell you that on a typical book drive, even let's say the not so active Girl Scouts or Rotaries, I still am getting 1,000 books in one shot. On the flip side of that, I had girls Rotary group last month bring me 10,000 books. So, and you can guide them. You could say, listen, max is like 2,000 or whatever it is, but they need it and they're always looking. So I highly recommend, even being more specific on social media.
Yeah, absolutely. There are so many different groups and community members that are looking for opportunities to lend a hand, to get volunteer hours. Book drives really are such a great, very obvious way to say, I need books, help me out, and get them all in one location that, it can be enough to fill your library once or twice, or it could be enough to fill it ongoing for a long time. Another question we get frequently is, okay, so getting free books could be a challenge for some people. Some people might have a budget to dedicate to their little free library. What about cheap books? Libby, do you have any tips about getting cheap books?
Well, actually, initially, when the library was just very plain and I was told repeatedly that people didn't know what it was, and I thought it was very much up to me to fill it. Luckily, there's a charity store only about a few blocks away, and I would make a trip there once a week. And they actually had a pretty good selection. And I was very, very fortunate. I think I kind of made friends with a couple who were working the counter, and there had been a sale on where there was like, fill up a book and it's $1 or whatever. But that sale was over, and the lady said it was $1 a book. And I was like, I can't afford that. I'm stocking a library. And once she heard that, she gave me the bag rate. So essentially, I was able to like come away with a tremendous super abundance of books for like $10. And her husband was actually even better with the children's books, which was the section he was in. He said, "You're talking to a retired English teacher. I think all these books should be free." So I actually got them a little bit cheaper.
Yeah, that's wonderful.
I mean, you might. I'm not saying everybody will have that experience, but I don't know. In my experience, people want to help.
Right. Yeah. You never know until you ask.
Go ahead.
If I may, I will add exactly what Libby said. Your local thrift stores, used bookstores, thriftbooks.com, abebooks.com, even eBay. There are so many if you have a certain budget. I actually got a call from my local Barnes & Noble, who I would recommend you guys trying to be friends with if you're able to. They just emailed me. They had a whole sale, a clearance, which I think they do every so often. And a certain number of books did not sell, and they were going to discard them. So they're like, "We just thought of you because we've worked with you before. Are you interested?" Just like Libby said, really the core of it is networking and building that personal relationship, establishing that presence in your community. You never know what bookstores or thrift stores, or you never know the local grocery stores or convenience stores. Sometimes they have a little book section, and they might not, they might want to get rid of them, or a holiday is coming and all of a sudden your CVS or drugstore has that holiday, a few books, just one rack. It's worth just introducing yourself, maybe bring a photo. This is what I do. This is my impact. And just, they'll give you really good rates. I find, just like Lexie said, if you just make the ask, it can be really productive.
Yeah, another great resource is your local public library. If you're fortunate to have a public library nearby, they frequently do book sales of the books that they're moving out of circulation. And a lot of Little Free Library stewards have had really good success connecting with those groups. Not only do you sometimes get an even better rate for a bag full of books, sometimes they're just really trying to get rid of them at the end of the sale and say, "Take them, they're free." And once you have an established relationship with your friends of the library group or the librarians in your area, that can be a really wonderful way to move books.
I actually was going to, sorry. Sorry.
Go ahead, Libby.
Sorry, I should have mentioned that earlier with the free books. There have been over time, several organic connections that we've managed to make. And one of them is actually with the library, which, as it happens, is just a few blocks away. There's a branch of the city's public library a few blocks away. Then they're very good to us. They give us books in really quite good condition that are at the end of their life in library terms. And it's, rather than throwing them away, I don't know what they do with the rest, but ever since we've connected, they give us every month, they give us, an absolute treasure trove. Other than that, there's actually an additional thrift store who went around the city dropping off books in the various Little Free Libraries. And as far as I know, the Cannon Street Little Free Library is the only one that said thank you and made a point of sort of pointing out that they'd done it. And ever since then, they are extremely generous in providing us with additional donations. So I don't know, some connections just come organically.
Sure, yeah, that's great.
I just wanted to add that if you call your local libraries, and even if they might not have anything for you, a lot of times what I find is they're the first call people will make when they're looking to get rid of their books. And a lot of times the libraries cannot take them or will not take them. So if you're on their radar, because, most people, we say, if you don't have the answer, try to find a different one. They'll have us on their list saying, we can't take this, but XYZ can. And that's also really good. Just call the libraries and say, hey, if you don't have anything, can I give you my info? Pass it to the calls you get, because they get a lot of phone calls.
Definitely. Yeah, that's a great point.
Somebody actually put somebody put in the chat the buy nothing groups. That's a very good point. But also what I've noticed is where people will sometimes sell book. They don't actually want the money. They just want the book sort of like decluttered. So if you sort of message them and say, if you don't sell your books, do you mind if I come and get them? I've had very good reactions to that. Now that's on book sharing groups, just regular, sell groups. I mean, this is all social media once again, but the buy nothing groups, same story. They're very supportive.
Yeah, another person asked about public schools, and teachers have their classroom libraries, school libraries that also rotate stock. So I think it's definitely worth reaching out to your local public school, especially if you have a kid in school or a friend who's a teacher who can put in a good word and help get some buy-in. Those are definitely places that books are rotating constantly. So really good options there as well. Let's see. Here's a question. How do you store your books? Leslie's putting her hand to her head. She's got a lot of books. Libby, why don't you start since you've got maybe a smaller amount of books you're working with?
Well, I'm definitely have a smaller amount of books than Leslie's, but it's actually funny you should bring it up because it's a sort of an endless, I suppose this is the flip side of in the early days, we didn't have enough books and we couldn't keep books in the library. Now, we're very fortunate to have some overflow, but the storage thing is a constant question. Without a garage, if there was a garage, it'd be a different story. But I've had my books in various sort of organizations in big plastic containers under tarps, and sometimes they get rifled, and sometimes that the plastic boxes are stolen. And actually just in between Christmas and New Year's, I went to lift up, I'd hidden a bunch of boxes away where it wasn't quite so obvious and I thought they wouldn't get stolen. And instead the water had got in. So all my books for New Year's were ruined. Yeah. So as far as you store your books, I don't have any wisdom to impart because it's very much trial and error at the moment. And I know what my dream is. I want to have one of the, something that's affixed to the side of my house where I can actually lock it up afterwards and so forth. But as far as storage, I wish I had more helpful things to tell you. All I can tell you is it's a bit of a challenge.
Sure. How about you?
If you don't have a garage?
I have to agree and commiserate. I actually do have a garage, and my spouse is not so thrilled that instead of parking cars in the snow, there are books. We also have a storage unit. Again, we do receive books in bulk. So I have a storage unit. Which is great. I mean, we're fortunate to have one in our neighborhood that we could drive to, but it's rough. I don't have such great feedback. If you have a business, a friend that's in a local business, like a vendor or a storefront that might have a basement in the community on a main street, and they can lend you just the basement or a back closet. I've had a few offers. It's hard because I work in the evenings to go through my books, so we can't take them up on it. But if you have time during the day and you have friends in the community that have some sort of business space, it's worth an ask just to say, can I borrow the back corner of my surplus? And in terms of like the containers, I really love the banana boxes when you get, that's how I call them. I mean, they're like banana open boxes, and you could hold them by the arms, and they're open and they're sturdy, and you can reuse them. I guess you get them from your grocery store. Somehow when I get my fruit delivered, that's what they come in. So I hoard those. And banker's boxes, if you do have to organize, because they're all the same size, they're sturdy, they have a lid, if you need that. But I feel for all of you because it's definitely a struggle.
Yeah, banker boxes and produce, like heavy duty cardboard produce boxes. That's a genius idea. I know for me, I'm fortunate to have storage that I probably could have way more books than I would ever need for my library stored somewhere in my house. But in order to kind of keep it in control and I don't end up hoarding books, I just kind of regularly go through the books I'm receiving. And if it strikes me as something that probably won't move, I just get rid of it. There's no use hanging on. And when storage space is precious, sometimes, unfortunately, we do have to get rid of books that maybe aren't a good fit for the community, or otherwise are in poor condition and just might not get picked up. So sometimes having a critical eye at your collection can help get rid of some excess books as well. There's some really good comments in the chat about temperature and climate control when you're storing books in like a garage or a basement.
And about mice, that's an excellent point.
Oh yeah, for sure. So definitely you just want to kind of, like Libby said, it's trial and error, figure out what works with you, with what kind of space you have available, get creative, and, take advantage of anyone who has storage space that they'd be willing to part with. All right, next question. How can I encourage visitors of my library to exchange books, not just take them? Libby, do you have any thoughts on that to share?
I pretty much don't. I don't expect people to, I know that the credo is take a book, leave a book, but I kind of think that that's probably more of a principle rather than a hard and fast rule. It's unenforceable anyway, and even if it wasn't unenforceable, I wouldn't enforce it, because the people who are taking books without one to give back, they're the people who need it the most. So every time I put books out, I just take it for granted. They're gone now, they're flying out into the world. So in terms of how do I encourage my visitors of my library to exchange books, I don't.
Yeah, fair enough. Leslie, how about you?
So I can only give feedback because, we send our books and don't expect them back. But I can kind of focus more on the younger generation, really, the social media generation. Kids and teens love snapping selfies and TikToking. So if you have a campaign of, take a video of yourself bringing your favorite book to the library, snap it, share it, so we could share what is new in the library and encourage them to be your spokespeople, kind of. Hey, Libby, you're bringing a book, take a video of yourself bringing this book and why you loved reading it, and we'll share it. They live for this. Just this reposting and tagging and being, Facebook famous. So encourage that young generation and their moms and their dads, whoever's taking them, to just be a part of it. I find that it's very hard for me to, I have to always engage in our audience, kind of like you all do. The more you give them the time to shine, you're a part of this. Did you maybe have them do book reviews? Maybe do a 30-second, you're bringing a book to the LFL, to my LFL, give me a 20-second book review video or a little bullets, and we'll share a picture of you holding the book. Keep them engaged, and then they'll also, now you've established a new relationship with a new person who can hopefully be a partner of yours.
Yeah, absolutely. We find that, the advice we give to new stewards is just to start with community buy-in. The more people feel involved and the more they feel that the library is for everyone, the more excited they will be to participate in that exchange. And the reality is that in some neighborhoods or communities that may be a book desert, if there aren't books at home, they will not have books to exchange. And it can definitely be disappointing if there are fewer books in it than that are being exchanged. But knowing your community, knowing kind of their needs, and also I think having an understanding for who might be coming across this library, what do they need to know about it? What kind of maybe expectations or goals can we set as a community? All of that can be really powerful, like Leslie said, in making connections, helping your community understand what your goals are and how you might achieve them together. And that buy-in, if we are exchanging books and we're sharing reviews of them, it feels important and exciting to everyone. That can really help encourage the exchange. And if you are in a position that you have a pretty solid flow of books and are able to let them be free out in the world, and once books are gone, they're gone, that's a really amazing position to be in as well. I think it takes some time for communities to get there and for the exchange to develop itself. And sometimes it might not if you're in a high need community that is low on books in households. There's a really great statistic, I believe, from Unite for Literacy, maybe. I will have to confirm and I'll put it in the show notes, but book scarcity is an issue where, until there is a certain threshold of books in the home, people will feel that they need to continue to collect. So once you meet this threshold of how many books are in a certain household, that family feels that, they have the books that they need to share and enjoy together. And there is less of that scarcity mindset that can sometimes lead people to, for example, take more than we might feel is fair or appropriate. So just knowing the different dynamics in your community, going into it, giving everyone the benefit of the doubt, and really taking joy in the fact that you are able to share books, I think is a really good way to kind of reframe that experience that can sometimes be disappointing if it's not looking how you might expect it to look. Let's see. And then another great question, I think Leslie was going to address this one. What do you do with book donations that you don't actually want?
So we get this a lot because remember, I partner mostly with groups that do drives, and a lot of times people will just like empty out their shelves and not even take a look. I can't even tell you. And follow us on social if you want to see. I take pictures of some of the crazy things we get. I will just share with you all that the funniest thing I ever got, just because like we can all use a laugh these days, I got a in my book drive collection a circumcision certificate. So like I had to find the woman to call her and say like, does your son need this? Like I'll hold on to it. So people really just take and throw. So the first thing I do is I go through the quality of it. I'm certainly not going to ask anyone else to take something that is in poor condition. If that's the case, I recycle it on recycling days. I'm talking about ripped and torn and covers missing, pages missing. If it's something that's acceptable, but for whatever reason, we cannot hold it. There are organizations in your community, and let's just talk about the flip side of everything we said. Post it on those buy, sell, free groups. Sometimes if it's something you don't need, but maybe you can make a profit on it, put it on eBay. If it's a great SAT prep book that someone might utilize, put it on eBay, make a few dollars, buy a new book, a used book. You never know. And also a lot of libraries actually have outside these big drop-off book like bins, Better World books, and you never know. But I would certainly look at other organizations that might take it. For example, we only take children's books through young adult, and I have found a partner in New York that every month I have to give him all the adult books, the Jennifer Weiner, Sophie Kinsella, et cetera, whatever I usually get from the moms who go through their things with their kids. And I'll give it to them. So it varies, but there are definitely outlets, and just put on the other hat of how do I get my books? And that's the same thing of where can I give my books? That type of thing.
I've actually never had this problem because every book we've ever put in there has just evaporated. It's what you said about being a book desert. There's like, apparently there's a hunger for absolutely every kind of everything, homemade Marxist screeds or records from the 50s, or so there was one, it was a book, Guide to the Internet 2001. And I thought, sure, that will never go. And it did. So perhaps people are lighting their fires with them. I don't know.
Maybe there's an audience for everything.
There's an audience for everything, it looks like, yeah.
Exactly. We are running low on time, so I'm going to move really quickly to our last question. How do I solicit the kind of donations I really want? And this has come up in our Facebook group a lot with people who have anti-racist little free libraries, who are part of the Reading Color initiative. And I'll give my tips really quick and then let Libby and Leslie jump in with anything they want to add. But like we have mentioned in the other answers previously, you have to ask, and you never know. Everyone you ask might not be able to help, but they might A, know someone who could help, and B, they might actually have a way to help you out, whether it's a small way or a big way. It's a discount, it's free books. I am fortunate to have a Goodwill nearby, and somebody in my neighborhood must read a lot of New York Times bestsellers and then just donate them when they're done. So I'm able to snap up some really great books there that are by diverse authors. That's really fortunate. And definitely those books may be a bit more of an investment. But the great thing about the expansion of diverse texts and more people of different backgrounds being published is that those books are more common now. More people are excited about reading them. So they will continue to be high demand, but also become more and more readily available. So I think as this movement of anti-racism and inclusion grows and grows, this will get a little bit easier for us to find and share those books. Libby, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, essentially, you mentioned earlier community buy-in, and I found that tremendously helpful. There's only, it's rare for me to do targeted call-outs now because there's enough coming in, but it's happened twice now that the books I was wrapping to come from Santa at Christmas time were stolen. And I did a call out with that in mind, asking for, certain quality children's books of a certain quality, like giftable quality, which is the only time you'll ever find me being that picky. And the point is, both of those occasions, I was given more books than I needed. And so basically, you said just ask. That's the essence of it. Just ask. People want to help. And if you sort of tell them this thing's happening that's sort of very community and it's very, well-meaning or good-hearted or whatever, people, they want to be part of that. The only other time I've ever tried a specific call-out was actually for something for Black History Month. I was having a hell of a time finding titles and publicized I spent a long time curating this gift list on Amazon and then publicized that. And it only resulted in one book, but that's one book more than we had before. So
yeah,
that
definitely.
I think is the kind of thing that has the potential to build on itself. But when you publicize a gift list or whatever, certainly the first time I ever tried that, but it worked. Oh, sorry. And actually just recently I was complaining about not having enough Black History Month books. I complained on one of the little library, one of the Facebook groups, and some godsend of a steward sent me a box of like Black author books and stuff. So it's just, I guess it's the same thing. Just ask.
Yeah, that's amazing. The steward group is such a wealth of generosity and different ideas and problem solving. Leslie, what did you have to add?
So I twofold, making an Amazon wish list 100% is an easy way to go, especially if you have a loyal group of supporters and people who can afford to. I'm actually doing this right now for our nonprofit. We are looking for books about animals specifically for a partnership we're doing with a pet company. And it's just ask. And if I may recommend, I'm reading if you guys have social media, I see some people asking, is it worth it to make a Facebook group or an Instagram page? Totally. And if you haven't yet used Canva, C-A-N-V-A, it is a free resource to make beautiful, professional looking graphics and videos. So if you're looking, so in my case, I'm looking for books about animals, make it a graphic, put it on Nextdoor, put it on your mom's group, your dad's group, your kids need service hours group. I have a Girl Scout troop who saw my message about animals and called me and said, hey, do you want me to pull out the animal books and keep it separate? Yes, I do. So ask and make it easy. People, I'm sure Shelby and Lexie can tell you, it's like they have 6 seconds to like look at your post until they move on. 6 seconds until they see your video and they move on. So find a graphic, make it huge. Got books about Black History Month, got banned books. We need them. That's it. Make it nice, make it pop, make it sparkle or move around with animations. Give them your contact info and you'll have luck because it's appealing to them. And people, I think everyone on here can really agree that people have a connection to their books. I certainly found that. And when we started the nonprofit, it was like, oh my God, you exist and I can give my children's books to you because I know you're doing good with them. They've been in my closet for 400 years from my great-great-great-grandmother. People need a reason to part with them because they're just going to hold them until they do. They're not going to throw them out. They're not going to sell them because it is a memory of theirs. So make that ask, show them what you're doing with it. Have a, got banned books and have a picture of your little free library with the child holding it. We need them And, you know, what is it? If you seek them, they will come, from Field of Dreams. Just make it appealing to them and find that social media, use it. They will definitely bite.
That's great advice. Thank you so much. And like Libby said, you know, one book can feel like an underwhelming or disappointing contribution, but it is a contribution and makes people feel good to be part of it. And it's just the start of the momentum to getting your community really involved with you. We are low on time, so thank you so much to Libby and Leslie for joining us and sharing your experience and your tips and tricks today. We really appreciate it, and there has been lots of great tips in the chat and different questions and lots of great discussions. So really appreciate your time with us today. I have no doubt that this conversation will continue in our Facebook group and in the chat as we go on. So thank you, and we will talk again soon.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
So really quickly, because we are running low on time here, I am going to tell you about our books page at Little Free Library. So it's littlefreelibrary.org/books, easy to find. We have giveaways that are open to everyone, sites where your purchase support Little Free Library's programs, and free books exclusively for stewards on our book directory. So I'm going to click over there quickly. If you go to our website, it's right up on the top. You can click on books and you can see the different opportunities we have available. And the newest one is our book directory. So you can use the book directory to find basically anyone who has books and who wants to share them with Little Free Library stewards. You can search by specific book types, new or used books, location, in-person pickup, or shipping eligibility, and more details to help you find what's available near you. There may not always be an opportunity that you qualify for, but check back frequently to see what's new, what's changed. We're always trying to find new resources to help connect stewards with people who have books to share. If you have a great resource for books that you think should be on this directory, encourage them to add an opportunity. Feel free to send me an email to get more information. You can find me at unbound@littlefreelibrary.org. And I encourage you to explore this directory. We've got, like I mentioned, our giveaway options. We've got someone closing an Amazon account and has to get rid of all their books in New Jersey. So there are opportunities like that that kind of combine all the different tips that we mentioned. And if you've enjoyed this chapter of Little Free Library Unbound, please consider a financial contribution that helps us keep continuing to provide this content to you for free. And donations to our nonprofit also support steward services activities so we can create more resources and opportunities for our stewards. You can donate at littlefreelibrary.org/donate. And as always, attendees will receive an email in the next couple of days with a link to the replay so you can share these great tips and tricks with your fellow stewards and other friends who are interested. We'll have some show notes that help compile all the great resources and ideas we shared tonight. And you can sign up for a chance to win a bundle of some of our favorite books. They are sitting on my desk at the Little Free Library office, and I hand-selected a bunch of really great books that we all love. So fill out the survey that you receive and you will have a chance to win that bundle, and it'll help you stock your library. You can register for next month's episode of Unbound at the link in the chat. And if you haven't already, we encourage you to follow us on social media. You'll get news about our programs, next and upcoming and future episodes of Unbound, and all the other exciting Little Free Library news. I am out of breath from trying to make this fit into 30 minutes, but thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you next time.